Elvis Presley once shot his TV screen because he didn't like the singer performing. He reportedly filled hotel hallways with fire extinguishers, foam just for kicks. He gave away Cadillacs on a whim to people he'd just met, sometimes complete strangers he encountered while on tour. He rented out entire amusement parks after closing time, just so he and his friends could ride the roller coasters alone in the middle of the night. Number 5, he turned hotels into his personal playground, and sometimes war zones. When Elvis Presley rolled into town on tour, he didn't just book a room. He often took over entire floors, sometimes multiple floors, of the finest hotels. This wasn't just for privacy. It was to create a sealed-off world where he and his entourage, the Memphis Mafia, could operate by their own rules. And those rules often involved chaos. Think massive water gun fights. We're not talking about little plastic squirt guns. Accounts from members of his inner circle like Red West and Lamar Fike describe battles escalating to the use of fire hoses dragged into hallways. Imagine hotel corridors flooded, carpets soaked, staff bewildered, as grown men engaged in full-scale water warfare, often late at night after shows. Elvis himself was reportedly an enthusiastic participant, if not the ringleader, the goal. Apparently, just relieving boredom and blowing off steam. Then there were the firecrackers and cherry bombs. Insiders have recounted tales of these being set off in hallways, lobbies, and sometimes even elevators purely for the shock value and the ensuing pandemonium. Picture the scene. The middle of the night, a luxury hotel, sudden loud bangs echoing through the corridors, sending guests and staff into confusion or alarm. Again, Elvis was often described as being right in the middle of it, laughing. Food fights weren't beneath the king either. Room service carts became ammunition depots. Tales exist of entire meals, spaghetti, pies, mashed potatoes, ending up on walls, ceilings, and people. One story involves an elaborate food fight that completely trashed a suite, requiring extensive cleaning and repairs. It wasn't always destructive, sometimes just bizarre. There are accounts of Elvis and his crew rearranging entire suites of furniture, just because they could, or deciding to have elaborate, multi-course meals served at 4 a.m. They essentially treated these high-end hotels like their own private fraternity houses. Security teams at these hotels often had their hands full, not just protecting Elvis from the outside world, but sometimes protecting the hotel from Elvis and his crew. The damages often ran into thousands of dollars per stay, a bill that was simply paid without question. For Elvis on tour, the hotel wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a backdrop for whatever whim struck his fancy, no matter how messy or disruptive. He created his own reality bubble, and inside that bubble, normal rules didn't apply. Reports suggest that staff were often handsomely tipped for their silence, or trouble smoothing over incidents that would have gotten anyone else thrown out, or even arrested. The sheer power of his fame and wealth meant the party rarely stopped, even when it probably should have. He reportedly once had a specific hotel suite completely redecorated to mimic his bedroom at Graceland, just for a single stay, because he wanted it to feel like home, a home where apparently indoor water fights and exploding firecrackers were just part of the decor. Number 4. He rented out entire worlds just for fun. Being Elvis, Presley meant constantly being surrounded by crushing crowds of adoring fans. Privacy was a luxury he rarely experienced in public. So while on tour, When he wanted to unwind or entertain his entourage, he did something most people can only dream of. He rented out entire public spaces for private use, often in the dead of night. One of the most famous examples is his habit of renting out entire amusement parks. After a show in a city, Elvis would arrange for a local amusement park, like Libertyland in Memphis, near his home. But reports suggest similar things happened on the road, to stay open just for him and his crew. Imagine it. Roller coasters, Ferris's wheels, game stalls, all operating under the stars, completely empty except for Elvis, the Memphis Mafia, their girlfriends, and maybe a few hand-picked local friends or police officers who'd helped with his security detail. Accounts describe Elvis gleefully, riding the same roller coaster over and over again, sometimes for hours without any cues or waiting. He'd challenge his friends to arcade games, load up on cotton candy and hot dogs, enjoying a slice of normal fun, but in the most abnormal, exclusive way possible. It was a way to escape the constant scrutiny, the hands grabbing at him, the screams. Inside the rented park, he could briefly be a regular guy, enjoying the rides, albeit a regular guy who had paid a hefty sum to keep thousands of other people out. These late-night park rentals became legendary parts of the Elvis tour experience for those lucky enough to be in his inner circle. It wasn't just amusement parks. Elvis was also known to rent out entire movie theaters. After the last public showing, often well past midnight, he and his group would arrive for a private screening. He could pick any movie he wanted, talk as loud as he liked, get up and walk around, or even provide his own running commentary. Reports suggest he particularly loved critiquing other actors or shouting lines at the screen. He could enjoy the simple pleasure of watching a film without being mobbed. Sometimes he'd watch multiple movies in a row, staying until dawn. He also reportedly rented out roller skating rinks. Again, the pattern was the same. After closing hours, the rink became Elvis's private playground. He and his friends could skate, play games, and blast music without any onlookers. It was about creating a controlled environment where he could relax and be himself, away from the pressures and chaos of his public life on tour. These rentals highlighted the strange paradox of his existence. Immense fame brought immense isolation, requiring extraordinary measures just to experience ordinary pleasures. The cost was irrelevant. The control and privacy were everything. He was buying back moments of normalcy, even if the way he did it was anything but normal. Number 3. Karate chaos, on stage and off. Elvis Presley wasn't just the king of rock and roll. In the 1970s, he was also deeply obsessed with karate. He trained seriously, achieved high-level black belts, though the legitimacy or speed of some promotions is sometimes debated, and saw himself as a genuine martial artist. This passion didn't stay in the dojo. It exploded onto the concert stage, often with chaotic and unpredictable results. Starting in the early 70s, Elvis began incorporating karate moves, high kicks, chops, stances into his stage performances, especially during energetic numbers. Dressed in his elaborate, heavy jumpsuits, these moves were visually striking, adding another layer to his already dynamic stage presence. Fans often loved it. But sometimes the karate took over. There are numerous accounts, and even video evidence, of Elvis getting perhaps a bit too into the karate during shows. One of the most famous incidents happened during his landmark, Aloha, from Hawaii, via satellite concert in 1973, broadcast live around the world. During a particularly intense karate sequence, Elvis executed a move so forcefully that he famously split the crotch of his iconic white American Eagle jumpsuit right down the seam. He had to finish the show carefully, sometimes using his cape to strategically cover the wardrobe malfunction. It became a legendary moment symbolizing his commitment to giving his all, maybe literally, on stage. But it wasn't always just about ripped seams. Sometimes the moves were genuinely risky. He'd perform high kicks perilously close to his band members or backup singers, the Sweet Inspirations and J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet. While usually precise, there were moments spectators held their breath. He also sometimes injured himself, twisting awkwardly, landing wrong after a kick, or straining muscles while trying to execute complex maneuvers in heavy costumes under hot stage lights reportedly led to pulled muscles, bruises, or worse. The karate wasn't just for show. It sometimes seemed like a compulsion. There are reports from band members and crew about Elvis stopping songs mid-performance to launch into an extended karate demonstration or monologue about the discipline's philosophy. These moments could be fascinating, confusing, or frustrating, depending on your perspective, and certainly broke the normal flow of a concert. He might demonstrate a self-defense technique or talk about the spiritual aspects of martial arts, turning a rock concert into an impromptu seminar. Offstage, during tours, the karate obsession continued. He would reportedly practice constantly in his hotel suites, sometimes demanding sparring sessions with members of the Memphis Mafia, many of whom he encouraged or practically required to take up karate as well. These sessions could happen at any hour, day or night. He'd give impromptu demonstrations to hotel staff, police officers, or anyone who happened to be around. He even filmed himself performing karate katas. His bodyguards often doubled as training partners. Red West, a longtime friend and bodyguard who was also a skilled martial artist, often found himself on the receiving end of Elvis's practice sessions. While Elvis clearly had passion mixing high-level martial arts with the exhausting pace of touring, the pressures of fame, and in later years reported health issues and prescription drug use, created a volatile situation where the lines between discipline, performance, and potential danger could blur. Number 2. The mind-blowing generosity sprees. Elvis Presley's generosity was legendary, almost mythical. But it wasn't just calculated philanthropy. It was often wild, impulsive, and happened frequently while he was on the road, seemingly sparked by whim or momentary emotion. He gave away staggering amounts of money and incredibly expensive gifts, often to people he barely knew. Cars were a favorite. Cadillacs, Lincolns, even the occasional Mercedes-Benz. Stories abound of Elvis while on tour, simply deciding someone deserved a new car and making it happen on the spot. He might be impressed by a police officer on his security detail, charmed by a bank teller he encountered, or simply feel moved to help a stranger he saw admiring a car in a dealership window. One famous, often repeated story, with variations, involves Elvis being in a car dealership buying a car for himself and noticing an elderly woman admiring a specific Cadillac she clearly couldn't afford. Elvis reportedly struck up a conversation, confirmed she liked the car, and then told the dealer to add it to his bill, handing the keys and title to the utterly shocked woman. Whether every detail of every such story is precise, the pattern of impulsive car giving is well documented by those around him. He gave cars to his entourage, band members, backup singers, family, friends, and sometimes complete strangers. It wasn't unusual for him to buy multiple cars at once during a single dealership visit while passing through a city on tour. Jewelry was another common gift. Elvis loved flashy rings, necklaces, bracelets, and watches, and he loved giving them away just as much. He would reportedly walk into a jewelry store in a tour city, sometimes late at night after arranging for it to be opened privately, and spend tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in one go. He'd buy pieces for himself, his girlfriend, his crew, and then often buy extra pieces just to give away. He might give an expensive diamond ring to a fan who caught his eye, a valuable watch to a hotel employee who provided good service, or a jeweled necklace to a local promoter's wife. There are famous photos of Elvis literally taking a ring off his own finger during a concert and handing it to an astonished fan in the front row. These weren't cheap trinkets. They were often incredibly valuable pieces. This on-stage gifting happened multiple times. Beyond cars and jewels, he gave away cash, sometimes large amounts, motorcycles, houses, and paid off people's debts or mortgages if he heard about their troubles while in town. This wasn't planned charity. It was spontaneous combustion generosity. He'd hear a story that touched him, or simply feel an overwhelming urge to share his immense wealth and act immediately. While heartwarming in many ways, the sheer scale and impulsivity of the giving were also extreme. It reflected his enormous capacity for kindness, but also perhaps a disconnect from the value of money fostered by earning so much, so fast. For Elvis on tour, spreading the wealth, often in the most dramatic way possible, was just another part of the show. The logistics of suddenly buying and delivering a Cadillac in a city he was only visiting for a day or two didn't seem to faze him or his team. They just made it happen. Number 1. He was famously trigger-happy, especially with TVs. Elvis Presley had a well-known fascination with firearms and law enforcement paraphernalia. He collected guns, carried them frequently, and sometimes, according to numerous accounts from his closest associates, used them in startling and destructive ways, particularly when on tour and confined to hotel rooms or rented houses. The most iconic and frequently told stories involve Elvis shooting television sets. It sounds like a rock star cliché, but members of the Memphis Mafia like Red West, Sonny West, and Lamar Fike all recounted incidents where Elvis, displeased with something or someone on the screen, would simply pull out a handgun and blast the TV. The most famous target of his televised ire was reportedly fellow singer Robert Goulet. Several insiders have described incidents where Goulet appeared on a show Elvis was watching, and Elvis, for reasons never fully clarified, though rumored to involve jealousy or simple annoyance, would shoot the screen. Imagine the scene: Elvis lounging in a luxurious hotel suite after a show, maybe eating a late-night snack, spots Goulet on TV, calmly picks up a nearby pistol, fires, and then orders someone to get a replacement TV immediately. It reportedly happened more than once with Goulet, and potentially with other performers he disliked or programs that bored him. But TVs weren't the only victims. Lamps, chandeliers, furniture, walls, and even books were reportedly targeted during moments of frustration, boredom, or sudden impulse. He might be talking on the phone, get annoyed, and shoot the receiver. He might see a lamp he didn't like in his rented accommodation and decide to redecorate with a bullet hole. These weren't necessarily acts of uncontrollable rage every time. Sometimes, according to his friends, it seemed almost casual, a bizarre way of expressing displeasure or just doing something shocking because he could. His entourage became accustomed to the sound of gunfire indoors. They knew where he kept his guns, which was often everywhere bedside tables, drawers, suitcases, and learned to react calmly, often handling the cleanup and replacement of destroyed items without fuss. The cost of the damage was simply absorbed as another expense of keeping the king happy on the road. There were also accounts of near misses or startling moments that went beyond property damage. Stories exist of him firing guns loaded with blanks unexpectedly to startle people, or target practice sessions happening at inappropriate places or times. While often portrayed with a degree of dark humor by those who were there, the constant presence of loaded firearms and the willingness to use them indoors, even if just aimed at inanimate objects, created an undercurrent of potential danger. His fascination extended to collecting police badges often presented to him by local departments in cities he visited on tour. He sometimes wore these badges and carried his guns openly, blurring the lines between civilian and pseudo-law enforcement in his own mind. The image of Elvis Presley, the beloved entertainer, simultaneously being a man who might shoot his hotel room television on a whim, remains one of the most striking and crazy aspects of his life on the road.